This week on the podcast, it's just me. Zia was gone for a week of holidays, so I'd like to take this moment to tell everyone that the Wii U is one of the greatest consoles of all time. And I almost forgot about the podcast, so I'm last minute recording it. We'll start off with some of what I've been playing and watching this week, and then we'll dive into some topics such as difficulty levels and if they're bad for gaming, are you suffering from the Gaming Backlog Epidemic, and then finally we'll touch on the idea of if video games are a waste of your time. Don't forget to stick around to the end where we'll give you the question of the week, but if you don't know already, you're listening to the Sunovageek Podcast. And hey, I'm Spencer. This is kind of exciting for me. I've been looking forward to doing some of these topics for a while, but Zio always vetoed them because he either thought they weren't good enough or he didn't have any interest in them. And now, because he's gone, I get to do whatever I want. Plus, it was a little bit late getting the podcast together, so I didn't feel like it was fair just for me to spam messages to the other guys being like, hey guys, I gotta do this. So what if you jump in? By the way, no prep time. So we're just kind of going with it as it is. What's kind of exciting for me is I've been playing around a lot with my mic settings, so hopefully the quality of the audio is going to be a lot better for you guys. So I've been getting into a few different games this week. Some of them that I played a long time ago that it's been a while since I've gotten into, and a couple new ones. First new one I've been playing is Solasta Crown of the Magister. I'm really excited for this game, and I've been enjoying it. I backed it on Kickstarter a long time ago, and I've been kind of keeping an eye on it ever since. What it is it's a game where they've taken the rule set from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and they've done an absolutely fantastic job of keeping the mechanics and everything in check with it. It doesn't have as much options or freedom of choices that you would have from a standard Dungeons & Dragons game, but this game gives you so many great opportunities for stuff like it. You've got 6 different classes that you get to choose from, different races, abilities, and you go through character creation just as if you're building a new character. What's kind of neat about it is they do pretty much everything in the game is voiced, which I mean, it's tough because they've got 3 different voice options that you choose for the male and the female. So the way things sound is kind of weird at times. Some of the dialogue doesn't always seem like it kind of fits or meshes together, and some of it's a little bit awkward, but there's a few voices in it that are just absolutely stellar, and it just makes playing the game an absolute blast. Plus, the mechanics are so much fun. You'll be exploring around a different... Like, there's one of the early maps in the game is you start climbing up these stone steps going up towards the stronghold. And they do such a good job of the elevation of the game where there's multiple tiers of structures you get to climb over and climb through. There's like this little cave inside the mountain where you've got these goblins held up, and there's these weird wooden structures they've all built and put together. And you get to climb up and through and around while you're fighting these different goblins, while the others are like far off, like 45 to 60 blocks away, or squares of movement, I should say. And they're shooting arrows at you, so you've got to like balance between what you're trying to fight here and then kind of what's coming at you from farther away. And they do such a great job with this throughout the whole game. I played a demo of it earlier of something farther, and I believe I was level 4 or 5 for my characters at that point, and we're going through this underground crypt. And I believe in the demo, you're playing a paladin, a wizard, a ranger, and a cleric. I believe that's what it is. And while this is going on, or while you're exploring through this crypt, you come across an encounter with orcs inside this little stronghold or like fortifications they've set up that you got to fight through. Once you finish that, it takes you to the next encounter because the demo it kind of jumps through a few different things to give you an idea of the taste of the game. And the highlight of the game was climbing up, or the highlight of the demo was climbing up these stone steps, dealing with all of these spiders, these giant spiders that are swarming in and around you. So while you're moving around, you have to worry about the spiders who are like climbing and crawling along the walls. They'll like move along different edges and then go down the side of these walls and then come up another section and start to attack. So you've really got to pay attention to the heightened scale of everything around you, and it's something that I haven't had the experience playing with in any other Dungeons and Dragons or D&D styled video game before. I believe the new Baldur's Gate is supposed to do an absolutely fantastic job, and from what I've heard so far, I think Baldur's Gate might it might take things to a kind of a higher step than what Celeste is going to be able to do. But Celeste is also, I believe, a game that's being developed by a new company that I think this is their first game or one of their first ones, whereas the Baldur's Gate guys have been doing it for years. I've heard a little bit about Baldur's Gate. I haven't played that one yet, but I'm excited to be trying that one out too. Iron Danger is another one I've been playing recently, and Iron Danger adds an interesting mechanic that I've never seen before in a game, where it takes a tabletop not tabletop. It's like a turn-based strategy game where you control 2 units on a map, going through, giving them actions, having them move from one location to the next, fighting different things, interacting with different abilities. But you have a timeline at the bottom of the screen, and this timeline gives you 20 actions. I think it's close to 20 actions. And then as you move through, the timeline kind of continues moving with you. And at any point, you can rewind back on the timeline that you have. So you can go back 10 spots, or you can go back 1 spot, so that you can choose different actions and choose different abilities and align things up different ways, move your characters different directions, so that it turns this turn-based strategy game into a puzzle game instead, which is really, really exciting. So it takes these elements where you're going through and you're playing this RPG, but now it's putting you in these fights where they're odds that you should not be able to get through. Like, you, in any normal circumstance, it would be an impossibly difficult game. But because you've got the timeline that you can keep shifting back and forth through, you can go and plan out, okay, I'm going to move here, I'm going to attack this guy, then I'm going to step over here to dodge this ballista bolt, and then use this ability to knock this other guy back. And then you'll have your other character go and run over and maybe light the ballista bolt on fire, and then move over and position yourself so that that last creature that your first person went and pushed or kicked a certain direction is now within range of one of your attacks. And at any point going through that, you could decide, okay, this isn't really working out. I'm going to rewind this back, and we're going to instead have this person move to this spot and go and shoot a fireball that's going to hit this clump of enemies, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to physically attack the ballista. But then doing that, you may find that because this character now moved in a different direction, that first character that you had go and give their actions to may have to go and adjust their actions, because now with the second character moving out of the way, aggro wasn't on that character for a couple guys, so now they've gone and swarmed the first character. And there's so many different balancing acts that you've got to do with this game. And it's amazing. Every single combat is like a puzzle that you've got to work your way through and find the solution to. But what's really cool about it is the solution's whatever you're able to decide and come up with. There's also no experience in the game. When you complete levels, it gives you opportunity. It just basically presents you with a menu where it's like, okay, upgrade these skills of these characters and these skills of these characters. And then you just kind of choose the upgrades you want for the abilities you like, and you just kind of go from there. So you can find ways to sneak past large groups of enemies and never encounter them, and then go and fight a couple guys here and a couple guys there, or even like start a combat and realize, I don't really want to do this, and then run away. Like, there's a couple combats where I just couldn't find a way to get through it, so I just said screw it, and I spent the whole time just running my characters around and past and using abilities to dodge things so we can just get to the exit point. So it gives you so many different opportunities to have a unique play style, and it's just an absolute blast. If you haven't heard of Iron Danger, then definitely go check it out, and if you haven't played it, you really need to, or at the very least go and look up a video or a streamer who's played it, because it is hands down one of the most unique turn-based kind of strategy games that I've played in a very, very long time. The only other thing I can really say about it is you only get to control 2 characters at a time. And you have the main character that you play as, who's I don't remember her name, but is voiced by an absolutely fantastic voice actor. The voicing for the main character is really what hooked me in and had me fall in love with this game from an early start. And then it's the mechanics that just drove it home. It was beautifully well done. They also finished the first game. Basically, you don't complete the main quest. You get to all these different things. So there's going to be a sequel. I just spoiled that for you. I'm so sorry. Whoops, but that's okay. There's supposed to be a sequel to it. We don't know when it's coming out. There's no news I've seen about that, but I'm really excited to be able to play that one. A couple games I've gotten back into. One of them is very dangerous, 7 Days to Die. A friend of mine has started up a server that she streams on. And yeah, we've been playing 7 Days to Die for a long time. If you don't know what that is, it's just a zombie survival crafting game. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of procedurally generated depending on what maps you choose, and you get to go and explore around, choose different abilities. Again, to kind of choose whatever playstyle you want, whether you're more of like melee focused or gun focused, and then what kind of guns you like, whether it's like shotguns or assault rifles, or maybe you just want to get points for being able to loot stuff, or maybe you just want to craft things or just mine. And it's a game that I don't think the game works as well on your own. I think it works really well as a group. So there's 7 or 8 of us, I think, that are playing it right now, and we've built. I love building and mining, so I've done most of the construction stuff. We found this old parking garage, and then we went through and we barricaded up the bottom sections to it, and then started building a base on the roof. And then from there we built another floor above it, and we've started like building these little like homes and bases inside it. All along the outside of the base, we've set up these metal spikes and these turret defenses, so that every 7 days in the game, when a giant horde comes in and and attacks you and swarms you, we've got our base that we can defend from. And we've started to like expand out into the street in front of us, and we've built into this across from the parking garage, or the parking lot. I guess, is it a parking garage? It's like a multi-tiered cement parking lot, multi-leveled parking garage, whatever. Across from it, there's a couple. It's like an apartment complex with there are a couple different stores in the bottom. There's a bookstore, there's a diner, and then some apartments above it. And we've started to expand into there so we can have more space for more people that keep joining in to play with us. And it's just been an absolute blast and so much fun. I've just been tunneling and mining underneath, building all these different supports so that the ground doesn't collapse underneath on top of me. And I've been having an absolute blast with it. And we're still going to be playing it for a while, which is going to be super fun. The other one is a super awesome game. I'm so glad I managed to convince Nab to start it, and so we've been actually playing a game, the two of us, Stellaris. It's a 4-time strategy game where it takes the 4-time strategy concept, but it adds in a lot of really unique kind of RPG elements to it, or maybe not. I don't know if you can really say RPG elements. There's a lot of story elements to it where you're building this civilization in the stars, expanding out, maybe you're like a conqueror, you're going out and destroying everybody in your way, or maybe you're someone who's going around and you're just like subjugating everybody and forcing them to kind of be a part of your collective, and then they have to give you tribute and whatnot. Or maybe you're a peaceful maybe you have a peaceful approach to it where you go and you build a federation and you start befriending the different people around you and trying to like build up your defenses and forces through that. But while you're going through and doing this, there's a mechanic where you're going around with these research vessels, and you're exploring the galaxy. And as you do that, you start these different events pop up where you could be going out and just investigating this little solar system, and then something will pop up where it's like it's this gas planet, but there's some sort of transmission coming from it. So you accept the transmission, and there's this voice coming through it telling you that they need help. They live here on the planet. There's planet's about to collapse. They need some assistance. So you can agree to help them, or you can just be like, nah, I'm good, and leave them to be. If you help them, then it brings up another mission for you to do, where you've got to take your ship over there, and it's got to spend a bunch of time and resources helping them. So after the time goes up, maybe you successfully rescue this ship, and now you need to help them go and get to another planet that they can colonize themselves. Or maybe something will happen where you colonize a planet, and then maybe 30 or 40 years later in game, there will be a massive earthquake, and it reveals that there's this subterranean civilization that's been living underneath the planet. And so now you've got to decide, okay, do we work together with them, or do we basically say, nah, this is our planet, get off? And then depending on the choices you make and the different random things that can happen, maybe you work together with these people and they become part of your part of the population on the planet, or maybe they start to revolt against and be like, no, like this is our place, we're taking it. And there's so many exciting different things that can happen. You can even go through the path where you start to, as your civilization expands, you begin building these robots. And then later on, you improve on the AI for them so that they can do more functions. And then eventually it gets to the point where the robots become sentient. And now the robots want their own rights. You've got to decide, okay, are they our slaves, or are we going to give them the rights to be able to be considered have the same kind of rights as everybody else that lives on the planet? And then later on there could be maybe everything goes smoothly in the end, you work together, and now you've got these sentient cyborgs that live amongst your population and kind of repopulate other planets with you. Or maybe something happens later on and something affects some of them, and then they start to, like, the faction turns and they decide, like, no, we are the dominant race, we don't want you here. So then you may lose control of some of your planets. And there's so many different events and so many exciting things that happen. But I think what really sets I shouldn't say what really sets this game apart is all the story elements in it. But another element that is, I think, fantastic about the game is there's a mid-game crisis and an end-game crisis. The mid-game and end-game crisis are worldwide events. Something happens that affects the whole galaxy. There could be a mid-game crisis where this extremely advanced faction that's been laying dormant for the last who knows how long begins to reawaken, and they start to decide, all right, what are you guys doing here? We're taking over. You guys suck. We're better than you. Or maybe this living creature wakes up and it starts like moving through the galaxy and it just destroying everything in its wake. Or maybe there's these marauding faction starts to, like, I think one of them, it's called like the Khan empires. The idea is kind of like Genghis Khan, but with this one it's like a space version of it where he starts just expanding out, conquering and taking everything for himself. And then I've never played the game long enough to make it to an end game event, I don't think. But the mid game events are supposed to be very difficult, and you've got to work together with some of the other civilizations so that you can survive. Whereas the end game crisis is supposed to be so big and powerful that you've got basically everybody's got to work together. It doesn't matter if your friends or enemy, if your neighbor is someone you've been at war with throughout the whole entire game. You guys have to put your differences aside for a little bit because you got to deal with this event that's going to just wipe out everything. And it's really cool and really exciting. And I think it adds a lot of interesting elements with the mid game and the end game crisis, as well as all of the RPG, or not the kind of like the RPG story elements, which I think are really cool. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. And I'm really excited for all of it. I'm going to be continuing to play a bunch of those more, and we'll see what comes out this next week, because I know the new consoles are out. I haven't gotten one yet. I don't know when I'm going to get one. Possibly soon. It all depends on what's going on. I think I'm going to wait, though. I don't know. It's tough. I really just want to go out and buy one, but I got to be responsible. I think if I'm going to get one of them, it's going to be the new PlayStation, because there's a lot of the Xbox exclusives that are going to be coming out simultaneously on Xbox and PC. I know other companies may make something exclusively for Xbox, so I might miss out on that right away. Oh, excuse me. But I think for the most part, the PlayStation is going to be the better route to start with, just because I am very big into PC gaming. And if Microsoft is going to do a lot of their air quotation marks exclusives on Xbox and PC, then I should go for the PlayStation instead. But one of the first topics that we're getting into is, are difficulty levels bad for gaming? I think this is a really interesting topic because we have some video games where the difficulty level is the main focus of the game, whereas other games have multiple different difficulty levels presented to them. I think two really great examples are going to be the Halo series and games like Dark Souls, because Dark Souls has one difficulty. It's hard, and the game's designed specifically around that difficulty level. So it lets them go and put the game together a lot differently than you would for kind of lower difficulty levels. And what I mean by that is, when you take a game like Halo, the way that they do the difficulty, I believe for the most part, is they don't change the units that you encounter. What they change is how the AI interacts with you, and then how much damage that the enemies will do to you, as well as how much damage you may do to them, as well as their health. And what maybe Halo's not the best example, because Halo does have a specific difficulty, veteran mode, where they say this is the difficulty the game is meant to be played on. And then they have the other difficulties, the more difficult one for people that want a big challenge, and then the lower difficulties for people that don't want to be challenged as much, or maybe they're newer to gaming, so it gives them kind of more of a gateway into it. And what really, I don't know, it's tough. I want to say, for the most part, I think difficulty levels are bad for gaming, because when a game has the takes the opportunity to build a game to a specific difficulty level, then there's a lot more that they're able to do in the creation of the game to tailor to specific things, where they can set the pace of the game, where they can decide, all right, we want these moments to be more difficult, and we want these moments to be easier, and we want there to be kind of like a transition through it, and we're going to make them more difficult by these specific things, and we're going to make it easier with these specific things, so they can build mechanics and have elements in the game that correspond to those difficulty levels. Whereas with video games that have multiple different tiered systems, they need mechanics and abilities that work throughout all of it. So they have to worry about balancing different elements, where maybe they start with a specific difficulty. They're like, okay, this is how we want the difficulty to be played. So they go through and they make the game that way. And then they go and they try to make a harder difficulty, so for people that want more of a challenge. And they find out that these different elements are extremely difficult because it doesn't work well now with these mechanics that are placed in the game. So then they've got to go through and start figuring out how to balance that kind of stuff. And then when they're making the game easier, maybe certain things make the game too easy, so they've got to go and start trying to play around with other elements. And I think when you have difficulty, like when you take the time to do difficulty levels properly, you've got to go through and deal with those aspects of it. And that takes away a lot of time potentially from the actual development of the game in different like the development of different areas that they could spend more time on. There are other games that they just don't really worry about that as much, and I think you can really tell, and it makes the game kind of fall off a little bit for me, I find, just because then the difficulty level's just where they just put a specific stat where they're like, okay, this is the game on this mode, this is it on this difficulty. To make it more challenging, we'll just increase the health of the enemies. To make it less challenging, we'll just decrease the health. And then to make it really easy, we'll decrease, and then we'll make the player do more damage. And I feel that in those elements, the difficulty level is bad for gaming, because for me, I really like I really like it when a game is put together in a way where they've decided the challenge. They know how they want the game to be played. They get the time. They get the time to put the challenges in and mix them together with how they want the character to feel, or the player to feel as the character's going through the story, so that on moments where it's hard for the character, then it's hard for the player as well, and you kind of get to go along with them and kind of feel through them in those moments. And another great a game I think that does the difficulty levels really well, even with the multiple different levels, is The Last of Us. They do have I don't think they have any difficulty levels that they say this is what it's meant to be played on. But even on the easier, what they did with even on the easier difficulties of that one, you can really still feel the moments of tension and the moments of tension and the moments of relaxing, and it flows really well with the story. But I think there's just a lot of other games that struggle with it. A great example, in my opinion, of a game that doesn't do it very well, and keep in mind this all mostly comes from personal preference, is Destiny. I really, really, really enjoyed playing the game Destiny. It's a lot of fun. The story is really exciting. And when I say Destiny, I mean Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. The story's fun. It's exciting to go and travel around and fight different things and make your way through the game. But the way they scale difficulty is they just add more health, and they make the creatures and the enemies just more difficult to kill. So the challenge ends up becoming more of a grind than it actually is challenging. And so it's tough for that one because of the way the game is styled as being more of an RPG. It's just, I feel that kind of adjustment for difficulty, it takes away from the experience. But at the same time, it is difficult to really decide for sure. Because I know, depending on the genre as well, it really affects how difficulty can be adjusted. Because there's a lot of real-time strategy games where, to make things more difficult, what they do is they just add debuffs to you, or they add buffs to the AI. So maybe like Age of Empires 2. The way they made that game more challenging was they went in and just decided that the AI can spawn more units, or it just gets more resources for free to be able to build different things, so that it doesn't actually have to go around and harvest all these trees. It still does. It harvests the different resources, but it just makes the game more challenge. It adds difficulty and challenge to the game by just giving the AI more opportunities to just spawn units or create things. And it's tough because I keep talking about how that's kind of stuff I don't really like in these games, but the genre really affects, I guess this is a difficult topic, because the genre really affects how it goes. It decides how you can really affect the difficulty and what direction you can go with it. I still want to say I still agree, or I still believe that difficulty levels in general are bad for gaming, and I think video games should go more along the Dark Souls route, not of like making games difficult, but by making the game with a single difficulty. Something where it's just, this is the difficulty of what the game is meant to be played on, which is something we saw a lot in a lot of the older games. But in recent days, I understand they change it because they want things to be more accessible. But I just I feel like I just think that's what they should do. I feel that if they decided the difficulty level for the game, it would have a massively positive impact on the story elements and the progression of the game itself. So that's my stance on it. If you've got different opinions, or if there's something that I said that you think doesn't really make sense, or you've got a completely different stance on it, please let us know. And let's jump into something that I've been talking about since the beginning of the podcast, and it's the Gaming Backlog Epidemic. Now, what exactly is this? Well, I think it's pretty darn straightforward, and it's that it's easier than ever to buy games these days. Anybody can go out and spend $5 and buy like 20 different games if you can find them on sale. You've got lots of things where the Epic Game Store is giving out lots of free games. Steam's going through all these crazy sales. You've got things like Humble Bundle, where every month you send to give a small subscription, you get all these tons of free games. So it's so easy to get more and more and more, and just not have enough time to be able to play all of them. Because most of us that play video games, we're a bit older. We don't have as much free time as we had before. We now work. We now have to deal with deal with isn't the right word for it, but we have family that we have family that we spend time with. We've got all these things on the go, and we just don't have time to keep up with all these video games. But there's still so many coming out all the time. And video games are fantastic. They are a form of art for telling all of these amazing stories and giving us these experiences we wouldn't be able to experience otherwise. I mean, there's no other way in the world where you could spend the morning traveling by ship to other planets and exploring these foreign fauna-filled jungles and forests, meeting these new creatures that you never could have ever imagined. and then in the afternoon go on this adventure through these catacombs, because now you're searching for these lost relics of like an ancient past. And then in the evening, go back home, start up, go and continue working on your farm and growing all these different crops. Like there's no other way that you could experience all these different things if not for the video games. And there's too many coming out, which sounds really stupid. Looking back at it, if I heard myself say that, I'd be like, Spencer, you're an idiot. You don't have to actually play all these. But it leads to just this. I always feel like I'm gonna miss out on it. Like there's these experiences and these games that I'm gonna miss out on the opportunity to play. So I think my Steam library is at like 16 or 1700 games. I've played maybe 25-30% of them. And every time I see a sale, I'm like, I gotta buy this. What if I play it? What if I get the chance? What if I miss out and I don't get the opportunity? I just like video games. And I want to play all of them. And I want them to slow down making games. Just like take 4 years off. All of the gaming companies should take 4 years off of making games. And what I mean by that is not just, oh shoot, I was gonna say don't like stop. Like they can keep developing games, but nobody can release anything. But then once the 4 years is up, then they'll just all release tons of games again, and then we'll be back to the epidemic. Okay, so all the companies need to band together and just stop. Give us the time to catch up on all these games. Give us the time to play through these backlogs of games that we're never really going to be able to play otherwise. Otherwise, there's going to be so many experiences and stories that we're not going to be able to experience and play. And I want to play every last one of them. I think what's going to kind of help with this is the prices of video games are getting more expensive, which sucks for us. It really does. The people buying the games, it sucks for us. But for the people making the games, if they make the games more expensive, maybe they can spend more time developing them. Maybe they'll be able to add more elements to the game. Because, I mean, I guess that's not really fair. Over the years, games have been getting more complex, and there's so much more that needs to be, so much more elements and work that they're putting into these games, but they're still being set with the same kind of restraints of like the time to finish these games. So I don't know. There doesn't really seem to be anything that's really an easy solution. I just want to play all of them. I want to play every last one. One of these days, really, one of these days, I'm going to quit my job. Game's going to take off. I'm going to make a lot of money by doing nothing. I'm just going to talk. Zio, I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to need, in about 6 or 7 years, I'm going to need 2 years off with pay. If you have any problems with that, say so now. Otherwise, we'll just kind of see what happens, right? It'll be fine. It'll work out. We'll be good. So just, nobody tells Zio I said this, but we're going to keep this I'm going to keep this separate so that in 6 or 7 years, when games just exploded, I'll be able to be like, look, Zio, I said this back then. You didn't say no, so it's happening. I'll tell you what, Zio, I'll give you a deadline to November 23rd at 3 p.m. If I don't hear back from you by then, we're going to say we're good to go for it. And I know we just spent a bunch of time talking about how there's too many video games and I want to play all of them. But sometimes I really wonder if maybe we should just, maybe if video games went away, if they all disappeared, if they were gone tomorrow, it would suck. But would it be a bad thing? I can't, like today, I spent so much time playing Stellaris. I did not stop playing it all day, except to play 7 Days to Die for a couple hours. And there's a few things I wanted to get done. I didn't get anything done. I'm working on a new series, a new Machinima series that we haven't really, I don't think we've talked about it or really given any information about it yet. We might have, I don't remember, but I wanted to get some more work done on that today. I didn't do anything with that. I gotta get the script done for Toga, Toga episode 2, but I haven't done anything for that yet. Behind on everything, and it's all 7 Days to Die and Stellaris' fault. And I'm gonna blame them because clearly it's not my fault for just playing them. It's just, thinking about this stuff, it really makes me wonder if video games are a waste of time. Because for some people, sure, it's their job, it's their career. But for us, the everyday Joes, the experiences that we get from playing these video games, are they worth it? Is the dopamine rush really what we need? If they left tomorrow and they never came back, I'd get so much more done. I'd be so productive. I definitely wouldn't have the YouTube channel that we have now, but I'd probably go back into doing stuff with animation and 2D stuff, and probably start a new YouTube channel doing that kind of stuff. I know my girlfriend is really big into baking. She's always been talking about opening a bakery, so we'd probably spend more time doing stuff with that. And I'd get a lot more done. Either that, or all of my time from video games would then translate into movies and television. But I don't think they would as much. Watching movies and watching television is fun, but it's not as engaging, I find, as video games. I think video games have that one extra step, which is giving us control of what we want to do, which is really exciting. It's an element that movies and television, I don't think will ever be able to emulate, because if they do, then they're just video games. So I guess there are a few that are kind of close in between. I think Steam's even got a couple of them that have popped up on it now as well, where it's a video game, or it's kind of like a movie, and then as it's playing through, moments come up where you decide the direction. So it's like a choose your own adventure movie or TV show. And I mean, they're kind of video games. What point does a movie with interactive elements become a video game? That's a question for another day. But I think generally, if we were to ask the general population, or look at the general population to decide if video games are a waste of time, I think I think they are. I don't like admitting it, but I think it's a fair thing to say, because there's really no benefit. There's no point of me playing video games except for streaming or making a YouTube video where playing a video game is not a waste of time. So, but then again, you could argue that hobbies are a waste of time too. So maybe the topic here is just entirely ridiculous and dumb. And I kind of understand why Zio didn't want to talk about it, but I think it's exciting. I think it's interesting going and looking at different things that we like and enjoy, and kind of breaking them down and looking at elements of them, and kind of seeing where the hobbies come from. Because it's like, what is it about video games that makes me enjoy it? And I think it's the sense of adventure. I think it's the moments where I get to kind of escape from everything around me and live these other lives, live these different adventures where I'm doing things I wouldn't be able to do normally. And I think it's exciting. Plus, you get the sense, maybe that's not the right word. You get the ability to go and challenge yourself. And there's no, I guess with video games, I mean, there's kind of a fear of failure, but the fear of failure really isn't there at all. It's gone. When you fail, you just restart. I didn't realize how much that fear of failure, or the lack of fear of failure, is what made games so exciting. When there was a period of time when I was streaming where I decided I was going to start a new challenge, where anytime I started a video game, I only had one life. If I died in the game, we uninstalled it and we never played the game again on stream. And I thought at the time, I'm like, this is amazing. This is going to bring so much excitement, so many new elements to me playing video games that I haven't had before, because I'd never done anything like that. So I started playing the original Borderlands. I made it through, I want to say, a third of the game. We made it to, I don't remember what the place is, but it's the big open desert type area where you first encounter some of the main vehicle baddies you got to deal with. And it's a really challenging spot, because at any time in the original Borderlands, when your vehicle exploded, there was no way to recover. And that's pretty much how we went out. We were riding our bike, we were riding our car, going through the section. I bit off a little bit more than I could chew, But because I was in the car, I had no way of escaping, because I was the siren, so I had the ability to go invisible. And that got us out of a lot of problems before, so I was able to take risks. But I didn't think about the whole vehicle aspect. And then when I died, suddenly there was that failure where it was like, my God, I'm never going to be able to play this again. And I felt a crushing wave of defeat. And then I ended the stream because I was like, no, I can't do this. And it's the lack of I guess, yeah, I hate saying it that way over and over again, but it's the lack of the sense of failure that makes video games so exciting and I think fun and easy to play. Because if you die, you can just respawn. You can try again. Sure, it's difficult and it can be annoying, but there's nothing stopping you from just trying it again over and over again, redoing that one part, trying a bunch of different things. Whereas there's a lot of stuff like that in the real world that you can't do. You can't go and jump in a plane and try and fly across the ocean, never having played a video game, never having flown one before. But in a video game, sure, you can do it. If you don't know the controls, just play around with it, figure it out, see how it goes. You don't like tests and exams or things you've got to study for and put a lot of effort in and ahead of time. But with a video game, you could just keep doing the test until you pass and it doesn't matter. And there's just that. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's one of the big reasons why video games have become my number one hobby is because there's no real failure to it. You can lose games, but you can play them, but you can try them again. Way easier than you can do anything else. Wow. That's crazy. I don't know how I feel about that. Kind of changes my perspective of video games. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow I'll wake up in the morning. I'll just be like, you know what? I'm done. I quit video games. If so, I think I'm going to be a very successful person because then I'm not going to be wasting all my time playing these video games. But you never know. But guys, I have got to get this podcast uploaded and ready to go for this. So we're going to be wrapping the podcast up here. Question of the week. I just talked about what I think drives me to play video games. And it's the sense of adventure and accomplishment, but also the idea, it's just the not really having to worry about failure. Failure is there, but not in a sense where it's true failure. And I think it's the combination of those three that make video games, that give me the drive to play video games. And so I want to know, what is it that drives you to play video games? What is it that you love about them that keeps you going every time you start one up? Let us know. We'll throw a poll up on YouTube. I don't remember what it's called, but there's a way to do it. We did it for pretty much every other question of the week. So we'll start up another one for there. You can also let us know on Discord, or you can send us an email. Let us know at gameofficialstaff@gmail.com. So, guys, thank you so much for hanging out for the podcast. Next week, we'll have someone back. Maybe Zio. Probably not. We'll try to avoid bringing him back. I'm just kidding. We'll see who's available and who's able to come in next time. We'll get the podcast done on a regular time so that we don't have any shenanigans like this going on. But, guys, have yourselves a good one. Enjoy yourselves. Spencer out.